Hi,
Hey,
Brian.
how you doing? We've got everybody in a waiting room right now except for Nick, who's gonna um, help out behind the scenes as we talked about, and then I let David DeYoung in as well. He does a lot of these, and I figured just in case there's any questions, he'd be the man to answer them. So
I've interacted with David several times. He's been extremely helpful to me in the
great.
beginning. Yeah.
So we've got a few people hanging out in the waiting room right now. This is recording now, just so I don't forget when I turn the presentation, the hosting over to you. So I'll be able to cut out the beginning part when I post it. So um, when we get to about 4 o'clock, I'll let everyone know that people are still coming in, assuming they are, and we'll get started in 2 minutes. I'll make you the host, and you'll do your thing.
I'm not seeing breakout rooms on the bottom. Does that come up
Well,
later?
when I make you the host, you'll see it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Okay.
Yeah. And you'll also see polls. So I have um, 7 polls that are just called poll 1 through 7. And then I have an 8th poll, which is the multi-select poll, where when you post that poll, they can select from, I think they're supposed to select 6 of the 9 answers or some responses or something like that. So
Yeah.
that'll be available.
So that won't automatically come up. I'll have to look for it.
Yeah, so when you get to the decision point, you'll have to click polls and choose one of the polls.
All right. Yeah.
So any of the polls are fine, except for when we get to that one multi-select, you'll have to choose poll 9 for that.
So there's 2 multi-select. There's one where they pick 6 items, but
Yep.
there's another one where they're supposed to identify this step, then that step, then that step, then that step. Right.
Yep.
I
So
think I'm going to talk with that one rather than go to
yep,
the polls.
the multi-step one, we talked about just asking them to put their responses in chat. So type in any thoughts you have about how you would handle this and type it into chat. So,
Okay.
but if you want to just talk through it, that's fine too.
Okay. Any word on Dave or Ken?
No word yet. We're waiting on an update from his wife.
Okay.
So I'm sure she's got a lot going on. So
I'm sure.
once we hear, I'll let everyone know.
Okay.
So we had about 140 people register for this one.
Wow.
I don't expect that many. I hope to get 50 to 70. I think that'd be great. So
Wonderful.
yeah. And a whole mixed bag of the types of people who are attending, which is great. So
yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I got the final edition, I think, about 10 minutes ago.
yeah, I know.
15
We're
minutes
working the
ago.
buzzer here. That's
all
how
right.
these always go. So unfortunately. But this one has media. So we haven't done a new sim with media in a while, I think, unless I'm missing something. And this is our first one with Zoom media. So I'll mention that as well.
Okay.
All right, so we've got 354 here. So around 357, I'll make you the host. And then I'll give the updates and turn it over to you.
Okay.
Tom, what's your official title?
My official title. I'm not sure I have one right now. They call me up. The position that I'm in at Towson University is a lecturer. And I think that's pretty universal among colleges if you're not a tenure track, but you're full-time. I'm a lecturer.
Okay,
I don't like the title because that's not really how I proceed, but
I saw it online. If that's what you want me to use, great. If there's another way you want me to present you, I'm happy to do that. So
instructor, full-time instructor at Towson University. So James is not here?
he will be.
Okay. I thought he was going to do the introduction. He's not?
I'm gonna kick the meeting off, and then I'll I'll turn it over to you, and then I'll also turn it over to James just to keep things clean.
Is James going to come in before I actually get going?
Sure hope so. I'll ping him now.
I want to say hi to Dave. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Tom, how's it going?
It's going well. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I was finishing up a phone call with the dissertation advisee, so I was logged in, but I couldn't chat.
Nice to see you.
With David all casual today. He's usually all suited up on the webinars. He's just a regular Joe joining.
I know. I even got like mesh shorts on too. You know, I am straight casual.
Wow.
That's great.
I have my son, my kindergarten son today. They have kindergarten roundup. So, you know, when it's kindergarten roundup, you know, then the kindergartners stay home. So I'm hanging with my son today.
Nice.
Yeah. Sounds like fun.
It is fun. Yeah. It's important to keep that balance, right?
Yeah. Today's our granddaughter's birthday. She turned 8.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to her.
Not every day you turn 8.
Yep. She's the youngest of 5.
Awesome.
The only girl. So she gets a lot of attention.
I'm sure. How far do they live from you?
5 miles.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's a blessing. That doesn't always happen, you know?
I know.
So Tom, how are you using the simulations in your program right now? What are the different ways?
Well, you know, I use them in my classes. So I pretty much do it the same way with full group facilitation. But depending on the semester, I have taught people how to do a sim, and then I've asked them to work through it themselves. But I'm not face to face with anybody. If I was in a classroom, I'd do much more of that and interacting with the different groups, you know, when they're working at their own pace. But
yeah,
online, I do it the way I've seen you do it and others do it, you know.
That's good. I'm teaching an online class right now where they're coming, you know, doing it on their own, coming to the discussion boards every Thursday, and then replying to 2 of their peers on Friday. And they're loving them.
Good.
Absolutely loving them.
I get positive feedback all the time.
Nice. Are you the only one on your team using them, or are there more?
No, there's 2 others that use them.
Okay. So do you split them all up like evenly, or like based on the class and content?
They're all teaching different classes. So they use them with their classes.
Okay.
They turn to me for advice.
Yeah.
Like I'm some kind of expert. I'm not.
All right, I've just got a message back from James. He's joining right now. We have about 20 something people already. So tracking well towards the number that I was hoping for. As soon as James is in, I'm going to let him in, and then I'm going to turn over hosting to you, Tom. It's hard to find people in this list because it's growing. See him yet?
Ryan, you have control over the sim to actually start it.
No, I'll turn hosting over to you, and you'll share your screen.
So where is it?
It's on Tim's. Didn't James just send you the latest link?
Yeah, just I'm asking if that's it, then I'll go with that.
That's it. Yep. All right, James is here. Okay, so I'm letting James in, and then I will do my little thing here. All right, James, can you hear us?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Hi, James.
All
Hey,
right.
Tom.
So Tom, I'm going to make you the host now.
Okay.
So I'm going to lose control. Make sure you can see polls and breakout rooms. Let me know if that's good to go.
Yes.
Okay.
All good.
All right. I apologize. You need to, this stinks. I can't let people in.
I'm admitting.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to do that as you go along. I wish there was a way for me to do both. Hi, everyone. We're at 401 here. My name is Brian Badolf Krentar. We're just letting people into the room right now. We have a lot of other people joining still. So we're going to wait another minute here. If you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourself via the chat button. Say hi to everybody. Tell us where you're from and what your role is, and we'll be getting started here in about 60 seconds. Okay, so Tom, I expect there to be some stragglers coming in, so just keep an eye on that waiting room if you can.
No problem.
Okay, yeah, so we're at 402 here, so we'll go ahead and get started, everyone. So welcome to our session. This is our webinar with Tom Evans, an instructor at Towson University. He's going to be facilitating our newest simulation that is called Leading School Culture Change. So we're really excited for you guys to see this and get some feedback from everyone. School Sims has a library of over 30 simulations right now for current and aspiring school leaders, and we are also adding teacher sims to our library, so we're very excited about that. As a quick side note, this simulation is our first attempt at using media via Zoom. As you can imagine, doing media production right now is a little bit difficult with COVID, so we took a different approach. So if you have any feedback on that, we'd love to hear it as well. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom, so take it away.
Thank you, Brian. And good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon for the launch of School Sim's brand new simulation. As Brian mentioned, it's called Leading School Culture Change. And before we actually start the simulation, I'd like you to think about that title for a second. Leading School Culture Change. If you've spent any time in a leadership role in a school, the title alone tells you that we are working with a challenge. In fact, it's a challenge that's a kind of a mountain, and a mountain with slippery slopes and jagged edges. And I don't say that to frighten you, but to plant the seed that we're probably going to need a good deal of administrative skill to move through this simulation successfully. So welcome, and let me begin sharing my screen and starting the simulation.
Welcome to the Leading School Culture Change simulation.
Can we hear that?
By School Sims, together with Gwinnett County Public Schools.
We can.
Select the next button at the bottom right to continue. In this simulation, you will serve as a principal of an elementary school where academic performance is falling. The faculty and staff are satisfied with the status quo and are resistant to change. As you encounter a variety of perspectives among individuals and teams, you'll seek to build a coalition that recognizes the need for a culture that supports improved performance. This simulation is about engaging others to foster and sustain that culture.
So context is important. I want you to keep your ears open for a number of key pieces of information that we're going to learn in these initial screens, starting with this one. So I'm going to move on, but
As in real life, you will not be able to go back in time during the simulation. There is no back button. You may only move forward. If you need to exit the simulation and return, you may restart or continue from where you left off. For a description of the buttons below, select the question mark button, which will display a help page in a separate browser tab. Finally, keep moving forward by selecting the next button to the lower right.
and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to move forward.
In this simulation, we've created a dashboard to show how your decisions impact trust, faculty and staff satisfaction, as well as student satisfaction. Students and faculty are two important groups of stakeholders that your choices will influence. Select the blue information button to see dashboard item names. The colors will change from time to time based on your choices. Green suggests you are managing them well. Yellow means not so well. And red, well.
Let's move on.
Easton is a K-6 elementary school on the rural outskirts of a large community. Established in 1952, it has grown from a school of 153 students in its first year to its present 792. The student population is diverse, with about 55% of the students on free or reduced lunch. The district is relatively small, with 5 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 1 high school. The district has about 9,800 students this year, and schools throughout the district average 42% free and reduced lunch. Your community is experiencing higher than average growth and quickly becoming more suburban. There is growing resistance to change, and you sense an increasing level of frustration within the community. Many still prefer the slower pace of rural life.
So we're gaining some information about our school and about the community. And some of those are catching my ear, and I'm sure they're doing the same for you. Let's go on.
You began your career in education immediately following your graduation from State University. You became good friends with Barbara Dwyer, a sharp, young professor at State. You've stayed in touch ever since. Over the years, your professional relationship has continued to grow, and she has taken on the role of a mentor to you. You've served in a variety of roles over the past 14 years. You instructed math for 7 years, then moved into administration, first as AP, and finally as a principal for 4 years at Weston, a neighboring school in the same district. In this last job, you implemented several significant change initiatives that enhanced performance as well as bolstered the existing school climate. You suspect that's why you've been given this new opportunity. The former principal, Dr. Weldon Pendergraft, was admired by students, teachers, and parents alike. In fact, in a recent survey, faculty and staff rated Easton as an excellent place to work. Turnover is very low, and at first glance, overall school climate seems good. You are somewhat anxious about taking this job. You fear that you will not be able to fill Dr. Pendergraft's shoes. Several faculty members you've informally chatted with agree that they'd hate to be in your shoes. When you begin looking at progress scores in reading and writing, you note that they are down consistently over the past 3 years. Math scores have remained consistent over the same period. With morale high, but performance sagging, you realize you have significant challenges ahead.
As we've said.
Dear Principal, I'm sure you've already looked into things at Easton, and I'm sure you share our concern regarding sagging performance in both literacy and numeracy. We expect that performance and literacy will be improved and that you will achieve this in a way that does not negatively impact school culture. Numeracy metrics need to be at least maintained, if not improved as well. The district would like to see results as quickly as possible. So we would like you to schedule a data review with us quarterly. We expect substantial improvement within the next 2 years, and we will need to see that you have at least turned a corner before the end of this year. Good luck and keep us informed.
Okay, before we go on, we've looked at a number of screens. You've learned quite a bit about the context in which you find yourself. So I'm interested in hearing from 2 or 3 of you as to some of the key points that have impressed you so far about our situation. Could a couple people unmute themselves and share with us what you've learned that you may have concerns about or you believe to be really important?
I'll share. The first thing that comes to my mind is the trust that was mentioned, that there is question on the degree of trust, which is obviously directly impacting the school culture. And I think about how might we as a team begin to first win back the trust.
Thank you, Dr. Mason.
Thank you.
Someone else?
I'm Sandra Mitchell. I'd like to just mention one of the lines that struck me from the email from the assistant superintendent was the district would like to see results as quickly as possible.
Yes, so pressure's on.
Yes, that's a big challenge to put in the factor of time with the weight of what is on this new principal.
Okay, thank you. One more.
And if I can jump on to what Ms. Mitchell was saying, again, to the assistant superintendent's memo, nowhere in there does he describe or put out there, how can the district support you? What can we do to help you with these endeavors? It seems that the culture from the district level doesn't seem to be as supportive, more of this is our expectation and we need you to meet it, not how can we help you facilitate this?
Okay, thank you. So maybe he didn't do that because he realizes you've been in the district for a while. I understand that you've been principal of another school in the district for the past 4 years. So you're not brand new to the district, but definitely brand new to the school. But yes, I'm not sure I'm feeling the love from the assistant superintendent as much as I'm feeling the pressure. Let's go on.
Okay, you have some information about the school and performance. From this information, what potential problems do you recognize? List as many as you can in 3 minutes in the text box below.
All right, so what I'm going to ask you to do is to use the chat feature and to type into the chat feature some things that you believe are potential problems in this situation. Okay. When we do these, there's a variety of ways for us to gain information in here. With the number of people that we have in the audience, this is one of the best ways, is to have folks put ideas into chat and then for me to just copy and paste some of the initial ideas that come into the chat box. So here's what we have so far. Staff may not feel there's anything wrong with the culture of their school. Resistance to change, lack of resources, rural areas growing quickly. Not everyone is on board with the growth or the change. What type of support can the district provide? Staff support for culture of Dr. Pendergraft and expectations that it should continue is certainly important. So there were many others. I'm not judging anyone as better than the other. These are all real potential problems that we face. Let's move on.
Your initial perusal of data to identify trends and discover areas where focus may be most beneficial provides a surprisingly robust list of areas needing further investigation.
Yes, it did.
In casual conversation with several members of the staff, you share evidence of declining test scores and other data demonstrating the need for change. You're surprised at their reactions. Most become defensive, offering justifications for these trends. It's obvious that they interpret your observations as criticisms and feel you are blaming them. Text from Barb. Hey! Just heard that you decided to take the challenge at Easton. Good for you! I think you'll do more good than that cushy job at Altamont High. How are you feeling about things? To substantiate the need for change, you realize you're going to need data from a variety of sources. The data you require should 1. Validate that problems you suspect exist, and 2. Help to prioritize their relative importance. You sense you're getting a pretty good handle on issues at Easton, but your text from Barb makes you wonder if you should get input from her before selecting data sources. What is your next step? Ask Barb for suggestions or move ahead on your own?
So if I click on the information, asking Barb for suggestions, she may have some ideas or even some scar tissue that you might benefit from, or move ahead on your own. The issues here at Easton are unique, and you feel pretty comfortable with your situation analysis. Besides, stakeholders are expecting improvement in the short term. Now I'm going to launch a poll. I want you to look at this as choice 1, ask Barbara for suggestions, or choice 2, move ahead on your own. And keep your selection in mind. Sometimes when I launch a poll, we lose the screen and you'll lose those choices. So have your choice in mind, and I'll launch the poll. And they're coming in, and we have selections in both categories. All right, so let me end the poll. Both options were selected with about a 2-to-1 preference for asking Barb for suggestions. And I'm going to select that because that, like I said, it was 2-to-1. But I'm interested in hearing from someone who picked Ask Barb for suggestions and wants to talk to us about why you think that's the best result.
Hi, this is Diana Watson.
Hi, Diana.
My question was, who is Barb and what is her relationship to the school? Maybe I missed that, but that was my big thing, is what stake does she have in either place? And do I really want to take her opinion into account if it tends more on the area of just anecdotal or hearing this from other people?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. You may have missed it earlier in the simulation where Barb was introduced. She's your mentor. You met her in college, you were friends, she became your mentor, and she's a go-to for information like this. How about somebody who picked move ahead on your own? Tell us about that choice.
Good afternoon. I chose that one simply because even though Barb is the mentor, she may not necessarily have a really deep dive into the school. So her what she knows about the school could be hearsay. And so for me, looking at, you have that data in front of you and all of those data pieces. and having your team that, even though there are some people who are not comfortable right now, but being able to go through that data and looking at it kind of on your own at first, because you're looking at what those outcomes are. Sometimes when you have so many voices in your head, you can't make a decision or you can't move forward, you can't do anything because everybody's talking to you. And so you've got, here's this challenge, not you got this wonderful opportunity to work at this school, but you've got the challenge and you gave up your cushy job. And, so that kind of thing just kind of did something, it kind of put a little wiggle in my ear. And so I think for me that moving ahead on your own and looking at the data to get that picture without having the extra voices. And then if I need to go back and get some further information after I look at the data, I may go back to Barb, but I don't think I would start there. I would start with the data.
Thank you, Paulette. And as you hear, both of those are good reasons for making the selection. And I want to use that as a point that in the simulations, there isn't usually a clear best answer. If it were, we probably wouldn't even put it in the list. Any answer makes sense, as we've just heard. There's good reason why you would select either of those. Sometimes the choices will give you a better result if you go in one direction than another. But in a case like this, there's not a clear best way to go or a clear wrong way to go. You could make either choice. We're going to go with asking Barb for suggestions.
You reach out to Barb, your mentor, and she listens carefully as you describe Easton's situation, your concerns, and your need for data to validate and prioritize issues. You share your thoughts on potential data sources, and then ask for her insights.
Okay, let's see what she says.
Data is important. Stay focused on it. It's good to hear perceptions. They frequently allow you to discover alternatives. But remember that they are perceptions and not data. Many will be hesitant to share their perceptions, and those that do may have an agenda. So I'd note perceptions, but not put too much time into formally gathering them. And I wouldn't put too much stock in them either.
The first word she says was data. I don't know if everybody picked up on the very first word. It was data. But she made an interesting comment that perceptions are not data. Would anybody want to argue with her about that? Or have a different point of view, at least?
Well,
Dr. Mason?
yes, I would ask, the first thing that comes to my mind is what type of data are we discussing? Are we referring to? And which perceptions are we referring to? So it's a very broad statement. But for me, it would be too early to draw the conclusion between the two. I would want any and all information that I could have access to as going into that school as the building leader. I would want to be able to obtain any and all points of data as well as to understand perceptions. So again, broad statement.
Okay. Anyone else like to add to that before we move on?
Hi, this is Julia Chittister.
Hi, Julia.
I was concerned by the tone of her text, so using that word cushy, maybe that she had some scar tissue or that she had like a previous, poor experience there or something like that. But I kind of now am interested to hear, pleased with her response, I guess, because it doesn't seem like she might have her own agenda. I mean, we'll find out, but it might seem like she doesn't actually have a negative attitude like it might have seemed she did in her text. So I thought that was interesting, the way it presented her perspective.
I found her comment about perception not being data interesting because I teach data-based decision-making, and we absolutely at the university level consider perception data to be important data. It's not quite at the same level as student achievement data, like national test scores, state test scores, that kind of information. But it's certainly a category that needs to be considered. I know the seriousness of perception data sometimes has resulted in people being moved from one position to another, or even let go, or at least brought in and talked to, if perception isn't what the district is expecting. So I wouldn't rule perception out, but I would tend to agree with her that probably the student performance data, that sort of thing, is going to be more useful to you in this. So let's see, we're going to get a chance to make some choices here.
Discipline data, faculty longitudinal trends and hiring data, attendance data for faculty, staff, and students, student perceptions and input, parent perceptions and input, faculty and staff perceptions and input, formative academic data, observations at planning meetings, information from other schools.
Okay. We're going to give you a chance to choose 6 of those. So if you start with the first one being number 1 and go down the list, I want to give you a few minutes to pick your 6 before I launch the poll. And unfortunately, they don't all fit on the screen at the same time.
Excuse me, do we need to remember the order that they're in, or will the actual term be listed by the option?
They'll be listed by choice 1, 2, 3, 4, etc.
So we do need to remember what's missing.
Yeah.
Okay.
6 that you want to pick.
All
Thanks for asking that.
Mhm.
Do we need more time with this?
Yes.
Okay.
How many choices are in this list?
What are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Thank you.
There's 9 choices. Okay, let me launch our poll. And Brian, I only saw 1 poll.
Looks like we can only pick one option, not.
Yeah, Tom, for this one, you want to pick there should be poll 9. There should be a drop down when you look at the polls.
I'm not seeing that. Yeah, I'm not seeing that.
Might have to put the responses in chat then, unless I don't want to disrupt with you making me the host and trying to look at it.
I don't mind doing that because I would like to get the right poll up. Otherwise, we're never going to get our 6 choices.
Okay.
It's 4:30.
So we're waiting on the new poll.
Yeah, so Tom, I don't, you probably can't see this, but before I select the poll, there's a drop down and I can choose poll 8. So hopefully everyone can see this poll now.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So Brian, make it back to me, okay?
Will do. Hopefully that worked, Tom.
I see the poll, yeah. And I'm back as a host, yes.
Sorry about that, everyone.
Choices are still coming in. And it looks like every choice has been selected somewhere. People are still voting. We'll leave the poll up for a little while. I'd like to encourage everyone to vote. We're up to about 68% of the audience haven't voted. Okay. Let me end the poll and show you the results. So the highest ranked one was faculty and staff perceptions and input. So we're going to check that one. What is next? 82, 87. Academic data. Student. Discipline data. And attendance data. Is that 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Observations of planning meetings. Okay, those are our 6. We picked discipline data, attendance data for faculty, student, staff, student perceptions, faculty and staff perceptions, formative academic data, and observations of planning meetings. So our discussion about perception data not being real data didn't frighten anybody off. Let's move on.
This is a list of the data sources you selected to gather and review. This list will be retained in your file cabinet below for future reference.
Okay.
You make appointments with and gather input from several of the faculty and staff. Among your more senior faculty, almost unanimously, they laud the efforts of Dr. Pendergraph and the wonderful climate he created and maintained at Easton. Most attribute lower academic performance to the growing number of reduced lunch students and the overall shift in school demographics. You recognize that Barb's advice was accurate and that, as you suspected, this feedback is potentially laced with an agenda. You decided it may speed things up by getting input from all the faculty and staff in a meeting. So you schedule one for later in the week.
All right, let's go with that.
Your review of discipline data indicates a growing number of problems and issues. The largest percent of disciplinary actions are taken among the growing reduced lunch portion of your population.
Interesting.
Over the past year, there has been a marked increase in absenteeism within both the student and staff populations. Truancy has risen by 12%. Of the students willing to informally speak with you, the majority express satisfaction with their individual performance and relationships with faculty and staff. Several even mention how much they liked Dr. Pendergraft.
Of course.
Reduced academic performance seems to have a high correlation with longevity statistics. Students in classrooms staffed by new teachers appear to lead the metrics, with lower results where teacher tenure is highest.
Okay, interesting.
You've decided that valuable information may be available from paying attention to staff interactions during your regularly scheduled staff meetings. It doesn't take long for you to sense tension between your two newest teachers and the more seasoned faculty members. It seems that an unspoken accord exists, and that several of your most senior teachers redirect focus with a sideways glance or almost imperceptible nod of the head. You know that informal structures usually exist, and this one appears to be well established and very subtly policed.
So you've learned a lot, and it clearly paints a picture of there being a significant challenge on your plate. Could someone talk about what they found to be the most significant of the information that you've learned?
I think observation. I think data is a silent message. It's important because it shows outcomes, but if outcomes are strong, but the perception of the people working towards them don't recognize that or see it as a different type of strength other than or weakness, I just think that we can see a lot of data, but not perceive it the same way. So I feel like observation is very important to see how people are responding to information, not just supposedly reading it or seeing it.
Yeah, watching how the people interact with each other. That could tell you a lot. Anyone else want to share?
One of the things that I recognized was the point made in the previous slide, I think, around the student performance seemed to worsen or get worse as the higher the teacher tenure, the longer the teacher's tenure was. I thought that was pretty interesting, but not really surprising because when you think about your veteran or seasoned teachers, they're the ones that are kind of getting closer to retirement, maybe a little more resistant to some of the changes or shifts in how we teach kids today versus years ago when they started in the profession.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sutton. And I believe you speak for lots of folks when you say exactly what you just said. People are probably thinking those same things. Let's move on.
Your information gathering meeting with the faculty and staff starts as a good thing, with several expressing appreciation for the inclusive beginning. However, as things progress, the all is well theme quickly emerges and the meeting turns into a Pendergraft fest. Everyone avoids the elephant in the room in favor of advocating the need to protect the status quo and the wonderful climate that exists at Easton. You sense that your faculty and staff put a stake in the ground and advocate for leaving it alone. You fear the meeting probably did more harm than good?
It's always tricky to present something to an entire faculty. You're never quite sure what kind of reaction you'll get.
Without more comprehensive data, you're uncomfortable with your ability to draw clear conclusions and thus finish your analysis. So, you postpone addressing issues and spend more time reviewing other historic data until you clearly identify the following trends. Over the past 3 years, test results show a consistent decline in literacy scores, including reading, writing, and comprehension. Over this same period of time, turnover among teachers has been almost non-existent. One teacher retired, and one left for personal reasons. Both replacements were tenured teachers from other schools in the district. Last year, literacy-related lesson plans were updated for ELL students. The impact on test results was negligible. Otherwise, lesson plans have remained the same for at least the last 4 years.
Wow.
Among students, disciplinary actions and truancy are both on the rise. Substitute teacher use is also on the rise.
So again, you've learned a lot. You're getting a fairly accurate picture of what you're dealing with, and it's significant.
You realize from the trends you've identified that underperformance over the last 3 years is the greatest among students of tenured teachers. You recognize this as a potentially delicate area. How might you bring issues to the table in a way that will engender ownership and commitment rather than defensiveness and resistance? Will you present the trends and issues in a faculty and staff meeting, or meet with faculty members individually, or identify a representative group or team within the faculty and staff, or ask the faculty and staff where they see room for improvement, or invite key parents to a planning meeting, or have a discussion with your administrative team of assistant principals.
So you can number those as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We only get a choice of making one decision here. So think about what you would choose for a moment, and then I'll launch the poll. So again, all 5 have been selected at one level or another. Okay, let me end the poll, and I want to share the results with you. So option 2 seemed to be the one that was most interested in by the group. Identify a representative group or team within the faculty and staff. Would someone like to talk to that? Somebody who picked option 2, why you thought that was the best option?
I think because we've reached out to the entire staff and we've tried to have a discussion as a body, and yet we still met with resistance. And even those experienced teachers who may see that there's an issue with culture and student achievement may be apprehensive to even speak up in front of an entire staff. So if you strategically target a group of teachers, younger teachers, some experienced teachers that maybe want to push the needle in student achievement, bring them together, that might better allow you to come up with some ideas to reach those that have been unreachable to this point.
Did you have any concern that the representative group who might identify themselves would either be too many of the veteran teachers who don't want to change, or too many of the younger teachers that might have problems getting their opinions listened to?
Absolutely. It's going it's going to be an uphill battle with who you choose. And so you're going to have individual conversations with staff members throughout the building, not just teachers, but trying to strategically choose those individuals who, number one, know that there is an issue at the school and don't like the status quo. And number two, won't mind meeting with you, spending that time and going against the grain of their teaching friends that they've been with for probably 20 or 30 years. So yeah, there is definitely there's some apprehension about who you select. You don't want too old, too young. You want a great mix so that you'll get a diverse advice.
Okay, this is a good point for us to do another strategy. There's lots of good information in those 5 choices. Like I said, all 5 were chosen. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask each of you to quickly join one of our breakout rooms. You'll have to join the room yourself and talk about your choices. Share with each other why you picked what you picked. I'm going to open up all the rooms and give you like 2 minutes to talk with one another, and then we'll come back. But you have to join your room.
Hey, Tom. So we're at 4:48 here. So I'll just make a quick heads up announcement right around 5 when there's a point I can break in.
Okay, welcome back. So I'm interested in whether or not anyone has changed their mind based on the conversation that you had. Any new thoughts?
In our breakout room, there was two of us, and although we didn't have the same choices, we felt that the two choices we both had, she picked, our step one, step two were reversed.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. I'm interested in hearing from someone who picked 5, meeting with your assistant principal team.
I was very fortunate to have my partner in my breakout room who also picked number 5. So both of us did, and had a lot of the similar things to say. We feel that you have an opportunity to have supportive leadership in there that ended in an S. It's plural. It wasn't even just assistant principal, but assistant principals. So starting with your colleagues that you are hoping to embrace as successful leaders, you could get a lot of information from just conversation, and they have some history, and then you have your ideas, and then from there to go and make your staff or develop your staff into PLCs, public learning communities, and you're stirring up who's in what group so that you are getting different viewpoints working in these different groups, and it's not overrun by maybe all the old ideas or all the new ideas, because what makes a good teacher is a combination of wisdom and new initiatives. So we kind of both agreed on that.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes.
So again, are we still okay with choice 2? Does anyone want to change their vote?
I think it's important, not that to change the vote, but I was in the same group, and we talk about the administrative team of assistant principals, but I think you can run those actually concurrently. You start with your administrative team and you talk about your vision and how you're working, and at the same time you share your vision. So it's more that shared leadership. So when you're going into creating change and moving forward in practice as well as in culture, that you then create with your administrative team a representative group within not only the faculty, but in your community. And then you build a new vision and a new mission together. So it's a whole new shit moving forward. So it's not in the sense that you're changing as your individual person, but you're using a group of people to support what is your vision, what are your ideas, so then we can kind of create this train together.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. That absolutely makes sense. And I believe many of you would do exactly that, that you'd have not just one thing going on at a time relative to this issue, but you might be doing several things concurrently. Unfortunately, the simulation asks you to make one choice and one choice only, so we're locked into that. So let's go with choice 2 and see where that takes us.
As you try to identify faculty and staff members who might be receptive to issues you've uncovered and work to resolve them, you realize you need to first meet each of them individually. So, you meet individually with each member of your faculty and staff and lightly touch on literacy issues to determine where they are in the issue. As you do so, you are able to identify those capable of objectivity and who may be potential members of a team.
Okay.
In your kickoff meeting, you present the following findings to the team. 1. A growing ELL population is negatively impacting formative data. 2. Declines over the past 4 years are greatest in senior teaching classrooms. 3. Tension is growing between established and new teachers. Their reaction reassures you that they likely recognize these trends and issues. However, each voices a concern about the level of receptivity in the faculty and staff in general. They also express their concerns about the pushback they expect.
Yes.
You want this team to be successful, so you meet with them and offer to assist with their efforts to 1. Craft a vision that will guide change efforts. 2. Write SMART goals with which to measure progress. 3. Identify risks and mitigation strategies. 4. Create a communication plan to provide regular updates. For the first few meetings, they seem to be making progress. And then,
And before we move on, I think SMART goals are fairly universal in people's knowledge of them. But just in case you happen to be in an area or a district that doesn't focus at all on that, let me quickly explain that the S stands for either strategic or specific. And the idea there is that goals should be aligned with the school's vision and mission. The M stands for measurable, and the goals should be linked to measures of student learning. Usually they're external measures, but they could also be classroom measurements of student learning. The A stands for attainable, that school stakeholders must believe that with a clear focus and a good amount of collective effort, that they can accomplish the goal. The R stands for results oriented, that the goals must focus on outcomes rather than inputs and results rather than intentions. And T stands for time bound, that the goal should include a time frame for when specific actions will be taken and when the goal should be reached. Let's move on.
when it comes to priorities, you can see they begin to struggle with consensus. What might you suggest to help them? Leverage collected data to prioritize issues to address? Or allow faculty input to prioritize issues and determine which to address and when? Or ask district for direction regarding priorities? Or ask for parental input regarding priorities? Or you set the priorities?
Okay, so again, look at those as choices 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And I'm going to launch our poll. One, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
Tom, while you're waiting on that poll, I just wanted to make you aware we're bumping up on an hour, so we'll
Absolutely.
certainly keep going through the simulation, but just making you aware.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, this is a case where there was a choice this time not selected. I think that's the first time. Choice number 1 is our chosen option, but it was fairly close between option 1 and option 2. Can we have a quick discussion of these? Somebody who picked option 1, why was that the best option for you?
It kind of reflects what we've been taught to do in terms of doing a deep data dive, gathering all of the facts, doing an analysis, and then prioritizing from there.
Okay, makes sense. How about someone who picked option 2? Talk to us about your region.
Oh, please go right ahead.
Mary?
It's 5 o'clock.
Someone was starting to talk on option 2.
Tom, I chose option 2 to give staff an opportunity for voice, and then keeping in mind that there was already a lot of tension and trust issues that I recall the scenario had presented. So really working on the buy-in of the stakeholders and knowing that they are the ones that are going to first be on the front line. And then if there was still no consensus, I would have to move to leveraging and making the decision as the building leader. But I would definitely go with 2 to give them voice first.
Okay, good reasoning. So we've heard pretty sound thinking on option 1 and option 2. We didn't talk about 3 or 5, but look at option 4. No one picked that. Ask for parental input regarding priorities. Think about, is there a scenario in which that would be your first choice?
School, like a completely different scenario. I
Well,
think about school uniforms. You know, if this school was, if it's a uniform-based school and there was concerns about students not being able to be in uniforms, then the parents would most likely be my first go-to as to getting their consensus. Do we need to look at changing that policy? If so, what is it, or what are the barriers that we would have to overcome? Because ultimately they are the parents that are providing or at least dressing their children or making those clothing available at the elementary level. So that's one area I think of off the top of my mind. What do others think?
yeah, and I wasn't trying to say that there's never a good time to go to parents first, and clearly there are. But
Sure.
in this situation, if there were something changed a little bit, is there anything that could be changed that would make you, in this case, this situation, go to parents first?
Perhaps if there wasn't so much like love for their former principal, you might be able to get their thoughts on what the priorities were, but it sounds like they already were very pleased with him.
Okay. I agree. All right, let me stop sharing. And because of the time, I'm also going to move forward pretty quickly here. We picked 2, right? Not going to go on each of these screens, but we're going to go ahead because I want to show you something at the end.
You
I'll
explained
have
to
to pick
Barb
one
what
here.
you are
Let me
doing
pick
to
that
help
one.
the team. You have heard concerns from some as the team deals with increasing resistance.
I want to get to the end because this is important for you to understand about the simulations. And I'm sorry that there's, I don't want to keep you all evening to process through each of these screens. It's a great discussion and there's a lot to pick up, a lot of subtleties in this one. But I want to show you something that these simulations offer you. At the end, there's a scorecard and it will take each of the decisions you made, compare it to other decisions that could have been made, and it gives you some feedback on that. So first you get a graph, but then here's the first thing. Potential problems was, what potential problems did we recognize? And we had 3 minutes. And we put all the information that you had put into the chat box. So you get an opportunity to review that. But then first decision making. You sense that you're getting a pretty good handle on issues at Easton, but your text from Barb makes you wonder if you should get input from her before selecting data sources. So our choice was to ask Barb for suggestions, the other choice being to move ahead on your own. So look at the feedback that we're given on this choice feedback. And then you see our score down at the bottom in the data gathering analysis section was 100%. That we're making a good move there in getting information from Barb on process, not specifically on data at this point, but on process. Let me show you a couple others. So we gathered information in those 6 areas. Those are the ones we picked. These are the ones we did not pick. And then we'll get feedback on each of those choices. So we didn't get the 100% in different sections. But I want you to see this, because if you were to use these simulations, for example, in your district or within your school, and you're teaching leadership, there are so many rich discussion points that come up in these simulations. Any one of these questions and any piece of feedback could be used to generate a high level of discussion. Let me do one more. So in this case, how might you bring issues to the table in a way that will engender ownership and commitment rather than defensiveness and resistance? We picked identify a representative group or team within the faculty and staff. And there are other choices there. And here's the feedback on that. So before I turn this over to James, are there any questions about the simulation or the use of a simulation or anything about the feedback that we might want to ask? Okay, if not, I appreciate you working with me this afternoon. I hope you found this interesting, informative, and helpful to you. Let me turn it back over to, is it Brian or James?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for participating in the simulation. Tom, to you for facilitating. James, I'm going to make you the host now. Everyone, James is our simulation architect, and he's just going to talk a little bit about the simulations. And so at the end, we'll make this simulation available to you if you'd like to play through it on your own asynchronously. We're going to provide a link to that. So hang on for that if that's something of interest. James, over to you.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to take a couple quick minutes and share how we think about simulation in the context of what we consider to be some very high stakes in education and education leadership. We think about simulations being used in various industries or fields that are considered high stakes. So if we think about healthcare, we think about the military, or we think about aviation. These are fields in which simulations are used in ways that really are tools for not only critical behaviors. A lot about simulations is actually applying what you know and applying it in different circumstances. So in our simulations, what we try to do are give people the opportunity to experience some new things, experience some new decisions that they need to make, so that as they are in the field, they have that portfolio of experience that simulation can help build to draw on, so they can draw on that in those circumstances. I mean, and as you all know, I mean, it's whitewater. So if you can pause and get a handle on some of the aspects of decision making and building up your ability to make good judgment calls in the moment, you might feel less susceptible to burnout. Just in terms of the high stakes, principals are, you know, the job of principal has changed in a way that is more intense. Certainly, principals feel like, if you look at the bullet points here, that they're responsible for almost everything that goes on in the school, that they're feeling that the job has gotten even more complex, which we hear from a lot of folks. And then tenure is down. And so when you think about having the time, the money for continued job preparation, that happens mostly on the job and through mentoring and peer learning. So simulation is another opportunity to build out that set of experiences, to have those opportunities to actually try some things out, experience new circumstances and challenges in a safe place. And then if we think about, pardon me, principals being the ones that have the most impact on student achievement after teachers. And that studies, I think most recently a study from Wallace really had some strong data to show how performance of students is linked to the quality of leadership. I mean, just very clearly, there's the data. And the number that's out there to replace a principal is $75,000. So those are some pretty high stakes right there to keep churn down, to keep experience level growing, and keep giving the people the opportunity to build skills in a way that is going to help them accelerate their feeling of comfort, their feeling of competence, their confidence on the job, and that just shows. Lastly, I wanted to just note that our simulations, we have a library, I think as Brian mentioned, about 30 of them, and they are built to align to the PCEL and NELP. So below these stories, underneath, there's this scaffolding of standards. So we really do build them not only with practitioners in the field, but kind of in the context of the standards. And as Brian mentioned, we'd be happy to make this simulation available or any of the others in our library for you to take a look. Brian, I don't know if you want to have, were there any more specifics you wanted to note about that?
I just typed the information in chat. If it's whether it's this sim or one of the others in our library, we're happy to let you play through it on your own time, and we appreciate any feedback once you go through it. So just chat me your name, and I will make sure it goes out. I'll be sending an email out around 11 a.m. tomorrow with the recording to the session, and also to anyone who wants the link, you'll receive the link as well. All right, great. With that, I just want to thank everyone for joining. If you have any questions, we're happy to stay on. You can chat them or unmute yourself. Tom, thanks so much for your time. James, thanks so much for your time as well. And if you are not staying on, everybody have a great night.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Many thanks. Very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Mason, I appreciate your participation. It's always helpful when people do speak up and talk.
Thank you. I didn't want to talk too much, but I found it very exciting. I just messaged you, Tom, and said, great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And
Dr.
Brian,
Mason, I owe you an email. I don't know, I'm not sure if you saw my chat, but it's on my list for tomorrow. So we'll continue the conversation.
I did. Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. Enjoy. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you, you too.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
So who's left? We still have participants?
We have about 7 people on still. It looks like most of us are with the company and just a few others. Yeah, Tom, you're welcome to drop off. Thanks again so much. That was a great session. I can't wait to get feedback from everyone who wants to play through this, on their own. So we'll look forward to that. And James, I'll be certain to get you that information as well.
Were you guys okay with what I did?
Yeah, it was great. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Thought it went great.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom, I'll reach out to you. I'll give you a call or talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, James.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. You all have a good evening.
You too.
And you as well.
Bye-bye.
All right, Brian, I'm dropping off here.
Sounds good, James. Thanks. Great job.
Oh, sure. Thank you.